I came down here with no idea what I'm going to talk about today, but I realized there's something I want to talk about. So it's going to be a bit hectic, but let's go. For some of y'all, you've experienced friends, family members, co-workers going to Hyrox and doing a Hyrox event, and afterwards going, I'm going to do this again. And I've met several people who did the Hyrox in Hong Kong last weekend and absolutely loved it. I have not met someone who's yet to say, I'm not doing this ever again. Whereas for marathons, I've definitely heard quite a few people say that. So in light of this topic, today I'm going to explain to y'all, if you're a beginner who's never done any sort of weight training, or only done a bit here and there, but has never been consistent, or same with running, I'm going to teach y'all exactly what y'all can do for your next Hyrox event. So for most of you, you probably have about 3 to 6 months before your next one. A lot of y'all will probably have signed up not knowing what y'all have gotten into. So I'm going to keep it easy, simple, and short. And I'll get into it later on if some of y'all want to hear more about it. So if you want to know more, you have got any questions, comments, thoughts, comment below. So how do you start as a beginner? Well, if you've never ran, or you've barely ran and you've barely done any sort of weight training, I would start with running first, okay? It's a running race. You can't ignore it. 60% of the race itself is running. So if you're, let's say, doing singles or duos, most of y'all will probably have signed up for relays, so we can talk about that too, but it's still largely running based. And here's the thing. A lot of people say, okay, well, 60% running, so 60% of your focus should be on running and whatnot. That's not how it works. I would say you need to focus pretty much all your effort into the running first. When you run, it develops what we call your aerobic capacity or your base. And what that essentially just means is your ability to use oxygen. And when you can do that, you're going to recover much faster. You're going to be able to do more things over time, regardless of what it is. So let's say if you have a really good aerobic base and you're able to run for a long period of time, that also means I know you're able to recover quickly between sets for workouts. So let's say if you had to do a running workout where you had to do, I don't know, the classic, let's say 8 times 400 meter sprints. So you do 400 meter, high intensity, pretty much close to your max heart rate, and then you rest for 90 to 120 seconds before you do your next set. If you have a good aerobic base, your heart rate is going to get back down really quickly for your next set. And that's why you're able to do more sets over time. So someone who's just started with a poor aerobic base will probably still be huffing and puffing after the first set of 400 meters, which means that their second set will suffer. Whereas if you have a good base, you're not going to. That's why I always recommend beginners, just run. Do slow, easy runs. Now, here's the thing as well. If you're a complete beginner and you end up trying to train in zone 2, what that simply means is, for most people, think of it as conversational pace, which means you're able to keep talking while you run. For a beginner, that's nearly impossible, okay? Because you're not efficient, your running economy is poor, you're physiologically speaking, mechanically speaking, not ready for running whatsoever. So no matter how hard you go, you are going to get a really high heart rate. It's going to shoot up and your legs are going to be exhausted. So what do you do in this situation? You still keep running. And I would use the RPE system, so the rate of perceived exertion system. For cardio, it's actually rated from 1 to 20, but that's a bit confusing. So let's just stick to 1 to 10. And I would say, as a beginner, your running workout should feel like maybe a 6 to 7 for the first 2-3 months, okay? Your first training block should not feel difficult. The whole point is just to get you consistent and to build running discipline. Now, obviously, someone might go, well, look, I've only got 3 months left till Hyrox. I need to train really hard. No, that's not how it works. Treat it as your first one to get into exercise. And you're not expecting a really good time. Please don't expect that, because if you're a complete beginner, it's not going to happen. Hyrox is a really tough race. Your goal is just to finish, get to the finish line, really enjoy it to get you involved and into the next event, okay? The next event, whether or not be another Hyrox or a running race, etc. That should be your goal. The mindset should be to get yourself disciplined enough and consistent enough to run maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Ideally, yeah, great, 4 or 5 times. If you look at people who are hitting sub 90, which is not, I think everyone can achieve that, they're running probably at least 2 or 3 times a week, bare minimum. I'm running 5 times a week, so go figure, right? And if you want to get your first, if you want to be able to finish your first race, if it's a relay, it's not going to be that difficult because it's 2 kilometers and 2 stations. Whereas if you're doing a duo first or even a single first, then yeah, you best bet you should be able to, at least unbroken wise, run anywhere between 5 to 10 kilometers. Now that's a big variance, so it really depends on how committed you are. But I would generally recommend the further you can run unbroken, the better. So what do I mean by unbroken? Well, for a lot of beginners, I recommend doing a run walk. What does that mean? So if y'all haven't seen the video, go check out my video on why I don't think running for distance is good. And if you're a beginner, running for time is much better. If let's say if I prescribed 2 runs a week for you and you need to run 20 minutes each time, you're not gonna be able to run nonstop for 20 minutes. If you're a complete beginner who's not got any weight training background, who's not really done any running, and you've never done any other sport, it's gonna be tough. So what do? You run walk, which simply just means run for as long as you feel like you can until you feel like, okay, this is pretty rough now. This is becoming an RPE 7 or 8. For those of y'all who don't know what RPE means, it just simply is a scale in which you rank how tough something is. So let's say a 10 is, I can't do it anymore. I'm exhausted, completely exhausted. 5 is probably about like, oh, I feel like I've done some sort of exercise. That was moderately challenging, but still wasn't that hard. So I would say run to an RPE 7 or 8, or you feel like, ooh, I'm huffing and puffing. And if I had to go maybe another minute or 2, I would get to 10. That's when you can start to walk. Walk, get back to, a lower heart rate. Feel like, oh, you know what? I can breathe again. Go and run. And just do that for 20 minutes, twice a week. Gradually, your cardio adaptations are actually really fast. And your nervous system also gets really efficient at doing a certain thing. And that's why it's really important to do something more frequently. So I personally would actually rather someone run more frequently, but for less time, because you're going to become more efficient at doing the exercise. It's just like any other sport. It's just like music. That's why you don't play, let's say if you're trying to learn the violin, I used to be a violinist, you don't do it for 3 hours for once a week. You want to split up the frequency. So you do, instead of 3 hours one time, you want to do 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, or even 30 minutes every day, that kind of idea. It gets you more efficient neurally, okay? Your ability for your brain, we call it mind-muscle connection as to, be faster. So your brain connection to the muscles. And you're able to do things better and more efficiently by just repeating the process. And that goes for pretty much anything else in life. It's actually not as complex as we think. So try and run more frequently. That's the goal. And the idea is that over a week, you should be able to rack up more and more time. So if let's say your first week you ran for 40 minutes, the next week you should try and aim for 45 or 50, maybe even 55, 60, depending on your tolerance. Now we need to talk about injury risks as well. Running, it's really important that you don't increase your mileage by more than 10% a week. Now that's according to research papers, and there's plenty of studies to show that now. If you're running for time, just treat it as 10% of the time. So let's say first week, 40 minutes, okay, next week, 44 minutes. Now, if you're a beginner, you probably have a lot more leeway because you will become much more efficient at running. So I do think you can maybe push it to about 20 to 30% and it should still be okay. But I'm not here to give medical advice and whatnot. I'm just an exercise specialist. So if you're concerned about injury, you're someone who has a history of, let's say, diabetes, high blood pressure, etc., then you might need to speak to your doctor and also speak to your physio if you've got problems in the feet, legs, whatsoever, okay? But that's the idea. Run first, okay? Now, when we talk about the weight training part, for most of y'all, you will have to do some sort of weight training. And this is not going to be easy, being able to balance both running and weight training. again, I would say your main focus should be running. So if you can only exercise, let's say 3 days a week, I would pretty much pour all my effort or pour all your effort into the running. The running is by far the harder part to do over time, especially if you're doing a duo, okay? Most people really struggle with the running, and then the stations just become a complete drag and really difficult. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do any sort of weight training either, because at the end of the day, 40% of it is weights. So the stations, as we can go through them, are the ski erg, sled push, sled pull, burpee broad jump, row. Oh my God, I'm starting to lose my mind. Sandbag, no, burpee broad, sorry, no, I said that already. Wait, hang on, give me a sec. What did I say again? It's the morning. So ski erg, sled push, sled pull, burpee broad jump, row, farmer's carries, sandbag lunges, and you finish off with wall balls. As you can already figure, the ski erg is largely cardio based as well. The rower is also largely cardio based. So if you've already got a good running base, this shouldn't be that difficult. Now, it does involve more musculature in the upper body. So if you have a weak upper body, you will struggle with that and gas out too. That's why it's important to get on the ski erg and the rower too to do exercise. But for most of y'all, you won't have time. If you're just a beginner, you're probably only gonna exercise 2 or 3 times a week. So for weights, I would say your bang for your buck to make sure that you can pretty much do everything else is a full body workout program. And if your plan is to run twice a week and maybe squeeze in 1 or 2 weight training sessions a week, then I would throw in a full body leg workout. And it should a full body workout program that largely focuses on legs, because Hyrox is largely about strong legs and leg endurance. If you look at all the exercises, it requires your legs. Now, ski erg and row, yes, you need to use a bit more upper body, but again, if you have good technique, it's largely using legs. Sled push, sled pull, legs, okay? A lot of beginners think you're using your arms. No, that's completely wrong. That's why you're gonna gas out. You still need upper body strength, but it's largely legs. Then you go into the burpee broad jumps. Okay, that's a bit more plyometric based, jumping, but that's all leg strength too. Then you go into farmer's carries, that's grip strength. So that's a bit of a different one. And if you can't carry the weight, then you can't do the farmer's carries. So you've got to learn, train your grip strength. And that can be done exclusively by working on grip strength, or my preference is to learn how to deadlift, to learn how to be able to do pull-ups, because they're going to improve your grip whilst also increasing musculature in said, for the said exercises. So for pull-ups, it's going to be your back muscles. For deadlifts, it's going to be your posterior chain, which is your lower back, your glutes, your hamstrings. And then finally, the toughest ones that I'm going to talk about, well, burpee broad jumps I already talked about, but lunges and wall balls. So these 3, burpee broad jumps, lunges, and wall balls, this is where a lot of people struggle with time. And there's, according to Hyrox, they came out with a report recently and said that for those who get better times, the difference really lies upon the burpee broad jumps, lunges, and wall balls. So how do we make sure you get good at your lunges and your wall balls? You've got to do them. So you've got to get better at doing your split squats, your lunges, and you've also got to get stronger legs for your through squatting. And I'm really trying to condense everything in one video, but there's definitely a lot more things to talk about. But that's the idea. So your full body split should look something like, maybe the first exercise will be some sort of Bulgarian split squat with or a lunge, and you're gonna have to squat as well. So you can decide whether or not you want to put the squat first or the lunge first, depending on which one's weaker. Again, I'm not gonna talk too much about programming. Then you're going to want to throw in, I mean, to be honest, you could probably get away with just squatting and lunging and doing those for 4 or 5 sets each. Again, building that neural pathway, getting stronger at these movements, which is going to help you with everything else. The squat actually has a very high translation and crossover to other exercises as well. So I would highly recommend doing the squat. Again, I'm not going to talk about programming, but that's what you want to think about. So the conclusion and the rundown is you want to get 2 times a week of running first. Start there. And then you're going to want to slowly build up the time you spend on your feet. As a beginner, I would say go for time, don't go for distance, but distance is obviously an option as well. and then you're going to want to do 1 or 2 weight sessions a week. And that's a lot to ask for a beginner, you know? That's going from 0 to 4 days a week of training. And that's very unlikely to happen. So if you're someone who struggles to get into the gym and you're thinking, oh, 4 times a week is too much, go run twice a week and then do your weights. Now, I'm not going to talk about the interference effect because there's too much involved, but what it simply just means is cardio and weight training, they have an interference effect, literally. So if you were to do weights and then cardio, that's going to affect your cardio. Obviously, you're not going to do as well in the cardio and vice versa. But generally speaking, the interference effect is seen much more prominently when you run first or when you do your cardio first, then you do your weights. Your weights is going to suffer significantly more compared to the other way around. So the general recommendation is to do your weights first, then do your cardio. However, there's one exception. If your goal is to be a better runner, you almost always want to do your running first. So I actually do my running first now before I do my weights. That's something for y'all to think about, but as a beginner, honestly, I would just say do whatever's easiest. So if it means getting a run in first, then you can go do your weights, do that. If you find that it's easier to do your weights first, then go for a run, then do that, okay? Don't make it overcomplicated and keep it simple. I sped through that, so you might need to do 0.75 times on the speed adjuster, but I hope this video helps. Please feel free again to comment and put your thoughts down on what your thoughts are, and feel free to ask any questions and I'll address it in next videos. I've got to run off for work now, so I'll catch y'all later. Peace.